Black marlin specifically is one of the most data deficient billfish species. So it means that all around the world, we really don't know enough about it to make accurate stock assessments and to accurately estimate the abundance of the population. My advisor, Barb Block, she really started out her career tagging marlin and working with tournaments. Anglers have supported this work from the beginning. Just that innate curiosity that we all have,
Yes.
especially as fishermen. Guy is initially a scientist. He has his PhDs, Dr. Guy Harvey. What they learned was that the black marlin populations were all very residential. He just reached out because he wanted to find the expert in billfish science, and that's Barb. I reached out wanting someone to lead this Black Marlin project. And so I was lucky enough to get sent down there. I'm at the end of my PhD. This is exactly what I love to do. This is truly has been a dream project for years.
Welcome to the Katie C. Sawyer podcast. I'm your host, Katie, and today we have a super exciting guest on. It's our first ever return guest from season 1, and to say I'm a huge fan of her is such a massive understatement. In our first episode together, we spoke about her studies, her PhD studies in bluefin tuna migration and population structures, how she ended up in that field, what it is about bluefin tuna that is so incredibly fascinating. We also dove a little bit into the fisheries management, the importance of collaborations on an international scale, the difficulties of working around highly migratory species because she focuses a lot on marlin as well. And all the while, we broke down the differences in existing tagging equipment, how each one works and differ from the other, all of their various challenges, and the data that these scientists are collecting from it. Chloe Mikles, welcome back to the Katie C. Sawyer podcast.
Thank you so much, Katie. It is so good to be back. That was quite the intro. And wow, we covered a lot in that one podcast.
I know. And at the time, it was like our first podcast. And I was like, okay, an hour is a good amount of time. And we had to like cut it short. And we were just like, how did it fly by so quickly? It was such a good chat. Like I re-listened to it in preparation for this one, obviously. And I just can't believe how good it was. You're just such a wealth of knowledge. And I consider myself so lucky to have you as a friend.
Well, likewise. Yeah, ditto. It is every time I chat with you, I learn more, and it's just I still can't believe we haven't gotten out on the water together yet. That's what's crazy.
I know. It's gonna happen, and it's gonna be an epic experience.
Mm-hmm.
You're in your final months of your PhD, right?
Yes, it is. Well, I don't have a defense date decided exactly yet, but the goal is December of this year. So yeah, it's end of March now. We have, yeah.
It's coming up. You still have time.
It is coming up. Mm-hmm.
It's you also have a wedding and a honeymoon that's coming up
Yes.
in between now and then. So
I've been saying like this is the busiest year of my life, but it's also like it's the best. So it's already been the best and it's going to continue to be the best. And I've just been super productive, so many great adventures, both for work and for fun. And it's really just so great when, you put in the hard work and everything seems to come together. So
congratulations, Chloe. That is so
thank
stinking
you.
awesome. In our first episode, you mentioned that you were out on the water a lot more earlier on in your studies. And now that you're more, at the end years of end months, oh my gosh,
Right.
of your studies, it's less and less time on the water. But I saw that you have actually been on the water quite a bit lately. No big deal. I saw a photo of you with Dr. Guy Harvey off of Tropic Star Lodge in Panama in January, I believe. Tell us a little bit about what you were doing down there.
Yes. Oh man. So that we could talk for hours about. Let me know how much detail you want to go into. So yeah, I really feel like I'm alive again because I've been on the water. Like this, the end of your PhD is tough. It's like you're really grinding. It's a lot of time in front of the computer, reading, writing, data analysis. And, it's what I'm passionate about doing, but it gets tiring. It's like what I really love is being out in the water and actually learning from these fish in person. So yeah, I got to go. I was invited down to Tropic Star Lodge in January, a part of a new project working with the Guy Harvey Foundation, Guy Harvey himself. This is a partnership between our lab at Stanford and now Guy Harvey and Tropic Star. So Robbie and I actually went down there in January and we had a blast. We were there for a week and we had no idea what to expect. We were just like, okay,
How much of a heads up did you have?
that one we actually had more heads up. That was we had a month heads up, which
Oh, that's pretty
as
good.
you know is a lot for us.
I am actually extremely surprised.
I know. So we had a month heads up. I think I was like, home at Christmas with my family, and it was like that was like my flights were actually booked, and they were like, wow, like this is great, you're actually going.
Yeah.
My dad was super jealous. He obviously
They do that.
like in the
Dads
fishing
get
world.
jealous.
And in the fishing world, like Tropic Star it's a dream. It is truly a dream come true. And it's somewhere that I think if you haven't been, you're always dying to go and trying to find a way to go. And then now having been, it's like, okay, how do I get back there?
Yeah. The whole reason why we took the on location over to the Pacific side in 2012 was because
Yeah.
the owner of the boat wanted to have his boat in Tropic Star.
Oh,
And
cool.
it was special. I mean, then, we spent 7 years in the Pacific from that moment on
Oh.
between Panama and Costa Rica. And then
Mhm.
I had an episode with Hannah Drake in the beginning of
Oh,
this
cool.
season. She's amazing. And we really fangirled out on Tropic Star too. Like that
Yeah.
fishery is just incredible. It's so cool. But what was it? Tell me a little bit about why Tropic Star was so incredible to you.
Well, so I guess part of the backstory is that we were there to study Black Marlin. So Tropic Star was special to me because it's this amazing, dreamy location destination for fishing. But it is truly, I mean, in their namesake, home of the Black Marlin. So we went there with a specific goal to catch and tag Black Marlin and just to witness how productive that fishery is and how many people come from truly around the world to target fish there. It's just such a special place. I mean, you round the corner in the jungle and the landscape is so dramatic. So yeah, you have to enter, you get there from plane to Panama City and then puddle jumper to the Darien. You land in the middle of the jungle, you hop on a boat. We have a tractor ride and a boat ride. And then you're rounding this corner on the water and you see that famous dock for the first time. And you just get chills. Like,
Oh, I
I
have
think
chills
my
right now.
yeah.
Your
Yeah.
storytelling's
Mhm.
incredible.
Oh, well, thank you. I learned from Guy Harvey. He's a great storyteller. No,
He
I have a
really
lot
is.
of
He really is. Continue. Sorry.
so yeah, we rounded the corner there and just seeing that dock, that famous dock, where I mean it's recognizable like throughout the sport fishing world, that one dock. And just getting there knowing about the records and the history, it was incredible. Yeah, and getting to be there, I truly couldn't believe that I got to fish there for a week. And then that first expedition was so successful. We returned the first week of March. So now I've already been back twice, and it's
Oh my
still
goodness.
just as magical the second time around.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, no, that doesn't fade. It's
Yeah.
it's so stinking cool, like you touched on,
Hmm.
that it is literally in the middle of nowhere. Like you are
Right.
surrounded by jungle and water. There's nothing to do there unless you're going fishing. And
Hmm.
so the entire mindset and culture around Tropic Star is based on being on the water. But it's
Exactly.
not, I mean, Guy Harvey has been a part of Tropic Star for so long,
Right.
which just really emphasizes the fact that the culture, the fishing culture of the area is very focused and adamant on the science and the conservation of the species. Can you expand on that a little bit,
Exactly.
like what that was like?
Hmm. Yeah, it was really special to be there because everyone was on board. Like everyone was so excited to have scientists there studying the marlin because there's this, really universal recognition that like we all love to catch these fish. We understand this region is so important for these fish. It's an aggregation of billfish, unlike anywhere in the world, really. And everyone's there. everyone is just excited about fishing and excited about, wanting to make sure that these fish are there. Like a lot of people have, it's like multiple generations of families there. And, you'll see that like the grandparents want to have this fishery viable so that their kids can continue coming here and fishing and experience this truly amazing place for generations to come. And I just thought everyone was so supportive and so excited about the science and really just genuinely curious about it all. I mean, we all
Yes.
are. We
Mhm.
all spend all this time on the water, and I think naturally we're all like little naturalists at heart. Like we observe things on the water happening around us and we wonder why, or as fishermen, you generally know why. Um, yeah, I've learned more spending time with people fishing on the water than I have from most textbooks.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And in the, I'm going to keep referencing it, but in our first episode, you spoke about
Mhm.
how fishermen, even if they might not be scientists,
Mhm.
all of their observations are scientific to
Exactly.
succeed in your fishery. And I loved that you said that. I loved that line
Mhm.
from our interview. It's just it's so true. And we're all naturalists for the most part.
Mhm.
We care about these fisheries and we care about the communities that depend on these fisheries. And I think that that is so fascinating. The
Yeah.
so let's hear a little bit about what you were doing. From what I understand, the guy and his people have been tagging blacks off of Tropic Star for a while now. Can you tell us a little bit about that if that's true? The
Yeah.
differences in tags, the tagging
Mhm.
program, and then tie into what your involvement was on behalf of Stanford.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was a really amazing place to go because I was throughout my PhD, I've kind of been, watching what other scientists are up to also. And so, yes, Guy Harvey and the foundation has supported a PhD program at Nova Southeastern, which is a school in Florida. And there was a guy named Ryan Logan who was doing his PhD there, studying marlin, sailfish. Well, yeah, blue marlin, sailfish, black marlin. These pelagic predators of the eastern tropical Pacific. And he really made a huge name for himself doing this work there. And I remember I was watching his dissertation defense, and he has all these videos of marlin jumping behind the boat. And I sent a picture to my girlfriend Natalia, who also.
Natalia.
Yeah, shout out to Natalia. And I was like, okay, I have to figure out how to get here and how to study. I literally found the text like a couple months. This was years ago that I texted her. I was like, we have to find a way. Like, you can help me fish. You can be the angler. I'll be the scientist. Like, we got to find a way to get here. So the fact
Manifest
that,
that, Chloe.
yeah.
I'm all about it.
So through Ryan's PhD and with Guy's support, he accomplished an incredible amount. He was studying the recovery periods of blue marlin and sailfish after the fight. He was studying their migration patterns in this region. The Eastern Tropical Pacific is also the world's largest oxygen minimum zone, which
Ooh.
means that it's really hard also for billfish who require a huge amount of oxygen to breathe there. And the oxygen
So
minimum
there's less
zone,
oxygen in the water?
yes, exactly. And basically, there's at a certain depth, you'll reach, I don't know the exact science behind it, I should, but you'll reach this depth where there's basically not enough oxygen to sustain those populations. So that um, basically layer called the oxygen minimum zone will come up to the surface or shoal a little bit. And
Holy
that changes
cow.
throughout the year.
Yeah, like based on
Hmm.
altimetry, I would assume?
I think it's changes between the wet and dry season, but
Wow, yeah,
we'll,
well, that would make sense because of all the water
yeah.
coming in. Oh, is it
Hmm.
is it because of all the rain? Because it's so tropic? You're
I
like,
don't
"I
know.
don't know," and I and I don't
I
even know if that makes sense, Katie, but I okay, you know what? Ignore
should
that
know.
question. No, you
As a
I think that
biologist, I should, but I
yeah.
can't remember right now.
No, you're good. You're good. That in itself is very interesting, and
Hmm.
as a fisherman that cares about science, and I mean, I
Yeah.
have a master's in environmental
Hmm.
science, right? Like I spent a significant portion of my professional career in that area, and I had
Yeah.
no idea
Hmm.
that that was a thing. So that's
Yeah.
really interesting. So
Yeah.
that means that there is an issue with recovery rate on the fish, like they recover slower What was
So
gotten from that science? What do we get
we
out
don't
of it?
know exactly how that recovery rate changes from different locations because basically his study has only been done there. But what we do know is that the habitat there is what we call vertically compressed. So you basically have all of these billfish species converging in a really compressed vertical habitat. They're not diving as deep and they're all concentrated in, you know, a much shallower zone than they otherwise would be.
Oh, that is so interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, what they
Okay.
found out there,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll go back to
Mind blown
tie
moment.
this back into us.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, they've been working basically, Guy Harvey and the foundation has been supporting research there for a while. He himself has made like over 120 individual trips. His artwork is all over the lodge. It's spectacular. It's so inspirational. I could go on and on about that. But what they learned through this guy Ryan's PhD was that the black marlin, well, and blue marlin and sailfish populations were all very residential. So they weren't going more than, I think, like 500 kilometers in total, like away from where they were originally tagged, which was
Interesting.
really interesting because you don't see that really anywhere else in the world. These billfish are classified as being highly migratory species, and to see them be concentrated not only vertically but also horizontally in this area and having this retention of this area was very fascinating. So they realized that there's a lot more here. We don't know much about this. And black marlin specifically is one of the most data deficient billfish species. So it means that all around the world, we really don't know enough about it to make accurate stock assessments and to accurately estimate the abundance of the population.
Which would
So,
then result in making
mhm,
good management decisions.
exactly. And on top of that, we have no idea where this particular group of fish spawns. So there's a lot to learn here.
There's a huge question mark over Black Marlin.
Exactly.
And I love that we're talking about Black Marlin because as you know, I was
Mhm.
in Australia at the end of the year
Right. Mhm.
fishing the Great Barrier Reef, and I'd seen a handful of Black Marlin in my time in the Pacific, of course, but to be in a Black Marlin fishery, a Black Marlin specific fishery, was really interesting. And I want to talk to you about that a little later on,
Right.
identifying these fish and all that stuff. But first, tell me, Chloe, because we talked about Atlantic bluefin tuna and bluefin tuna as a
Mhm.
whole,
Yeah.
and all of the data we have on them, and
Right.
the science that's been done on them, and the fisheries management around these fish. Can you explain to our listeners why we know so much about bluefin tuna, still have so many questions, but we know so much about bluefin tuna,
Right.
and we don't even know where the black marlin spawn?
Well, so we do know where some of them spawn. We don't know exact. Yeah, it's it is really amazing that we've been basically studying fish in the ocean for a very long time and still there are so many questions. It is hard to explain to people. They're like, "Wait, you've put out how many tags on bluefin tuna and you still can't tell me what they do?"
Oh my gosh. Come on, though. Those bluefin
But
tuna.
so bluefin tuna, I mean, as you know, are an incredibly important economic resource for both their commercial and recreational fisheries, and they have been for a really long time. And so the reason that we do know a lot about bluefin tuna is because there's been a huge amount of resources dedicated to studying them, really across the world. So our lab at Stanford, my advisor, Dr. Barbara Block, has dedicated her entire career to studying not just bluefin tuna, but also sharks and billfish species as well. But her bread and butter is bluefin tuna. And so for over, gosh, it's been 30 years. For 30 years, she has been really raising money and deploying tags, electronic tags, that track the fish's migration patterns in both the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, targeting Atlantic and obviously Pacific bluefin tuna. So over
Legend.
that amount of time, we've learned not just where the different populations, well, we've learned that there are different populations. That was something that we didn't really understand before
Mhm.
electronic tagging. We had no idea what age they reach maturity, and that's really, or where they're spawning.
I
And
mean,
that's
those
a
are
huge thing.
huge. Yeah, those are all huge
Exactly.
things. Sorry,
Right.
I interrupted.
Yeah.
Continue.
No, you're
Please continue giving
exactly
us the
right.
educate.
So those are huge because When you're setting catch rates and making estimates of abundance for populations, you have to know how old the fish are when they spawn. And you have to know what proportion of fish you're taking out that are spawners and that are subadults, and you have to set the catch rates appropriately. So, a big problem throughout history, you see this repeated over and over again, was that basically we overfished populations before we knew anything about them. So, that was what caused cod to collapse. That was what caused bluefin tuna to collapse. But now, as we're learning from our mistakes, we're learning to manage fisheries more responsibly. And, the United States has some of the best managed fisheries in the world. People regionally might disagree based on have their own gripes depending on where you are and what you fish, but compared to other
Gosh.
countries,
Where
we do a
I've
really
been,
good job.
it's amazing. Like in
Yeah.
comparison, even like
Hmm.
mainland Europe, like I'm
Right.
not just talking about third world countries that I fished in. I'm talking about
Yeah.
like first world countries. In comparison, our fisheries management and our game management is exceeds them
Right.
exponentially. Yeah. I
Yeah.
can agree with that for sure.
Hmm. So, yeah, now we've learned that we really need to better understand a population before we are fishing it too much. And bluefin tuna is really this amazing example of um, how things really turned around when we recognized, okay, we've overfished this population in the 70s, 80s. Let's have really strict management procedures, and the population recovered as a result. But the thing is, it's hard with these longer lived fish in that you don't see that effect for years, sometimes even
Yeah.
decades.
Because
Is
what the bluefin tuna, it's like
Mhm.
they reach sexual maturity at like 12, 13, depending on what
Right,
population they're from.
exactly. Yeah,
That's so long. So you don't see anything
right.
for over a decade. You don't see any
Yep,
results,
exactly. And
which means you get
sometimes
some
not for 2
disgruntled.
decades.
Oh my gosh.
Exactly.
So then you get some
Mhm.
disgruntled fishermen, which understandably so. Like that's a generation.
Right. Yes. But what's been so amazing, and I think this story has become famous around the world, or especially around the country, in California, the Pacific bluefin tuna fishery has had this incredible resurgence in the past 8 years. Really starting in 2016, it just took off again. And people are seeing more fish and bigger fish than they have in their entire lifetime.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And
That's
that's
seriously
just
so cool.
I know. It's amazing. And it's great to see like how when we put the science to work and
Mhm.
we show, okay, this is what's happened, this is how we can help it. But um, people are actually seeing the effects of the management in their lifetime, which is really amazing.
That is really
So,
amazing. And it's got to be
mhm,
intimidating to put that, to be the people that are going through the data, that are doing the research and then
mhm,
proposing the regulation. Like that's a lot, especially when it's
right,
going to take so much time.
exactly. And it has a huge effect. So, our goal as scientists is just to provide the best available science, collect all of the data, do a good job, and provide that to managers. So we like to, not be the ones that are making the management decisions, but providing the best data to do so. And the one thing that is a little concerning that we'll bring up in the Pacific is that the quotas for Pacific bluefin tuna have just been raised a huge amount,
Oof.
like 80%. And a lot of fishermen, especially the recreational fishermen out of San Diego, are really concerned about that because that means that those commercial quotas are going to go up. And those quota raises were based off of a much lower age to maturity than what we think is
Oh
actually with
no.
Pacific bluefin. So the problem is that if these quotas are raised too much, we could see basically they like to take a more cautious approach, like or typically we like to, where you raise the quotas slowly and incrementally and see how the fishery responds before raising it 80%.
Yeah. Is that
And
80% in like 1 year?
yeah, it was from, so let's see. I did write this one down, so I had it correct. The Pacific
Golly.
bluefin quota for the United States was about 1,000 metric tons for 2023 to 2024. And for 25 to 26, it's up to 1,800 metric tons. The Mexican quota has also been raised from almost 7,000 metric tons to 10,700 metric tons for this next
Oh
year,
my goodness.
which is a
Yikes.
lot.
That is a
And
lot.
the thing is, those fish, Pacific bluefin make this kind of figure eight from Baja California up to Monterey, where I am, as well as they make it up to Half Moon, and you see those pictures of fish under the Golden Gate Bridge. So these are the exact same population of fish that's in Mexico and that's in U.S. waters.
Yeah.
So if they're all caught by purse seine fisheries before they make it up to U.S. waters, then the recreational fishery isn't going to necessarily see that amazing fishery that they've had the past couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah. Fascinating. With the oh gosh, I have so many different questions and I'm trying to decide which direction I want to go. Real quick on this one. So on
Yeah.
the Atlantic side, we have ICAT.
Hmm.
What do you have
Yes.
on the Pacific side?
So we have the IATTC, which is the Inter-American Tropical Tuna Commission.
Nice. That's a great name.
Yes.
Um, okay, cool. Okay. Interesting. So on bluefin tuna, like thinking bluefin versus billfish.
Yeah.
Bluefin, it's very easy to put an economic value on a singular bluefin
Right.
because of
Hmm.
all of the industries that can make money off of them. Like we've seen it in restaurantation, we've seen it in the commercial sector, we've seen it recreationally. I mean, there are entire nations that whose main
Hmm.
import
Yeah.
export is bluefin,
Right.
Whereas billfish, it's a little bit different. Although they are commercially harvested in a lot of different places,
Yeah.
there is a significantly lower economic value on them, which means that there's less money to be put towards the studies and potential conservation of them, right?
I don't know necessarily about that because they're so important recreationally, but yeah, it is interesting. I know that people have done economic studies. I don't know exactly what they are on billfish, showing that they are so much more valuable as a fish that can be caught over and over again as a recreational
Exactly.
fish than just caught once and sold in a commercial market where billfish is not the most desirable fish to
Meat.
eat.
No.
Right.
And
Hmm.
each one's different. I will say that was
Yeah.
surprised to find that out in my
Right.
career.
Hmm.
But that's why organizations like the Billfish Foundation, who
Hmm.
literally put all their time into coming up with data that supports how important these fish are alive as a catch and
Right.
release product because of the recreational fishing sector. Um, it's so important to support organizations like that because I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think we don't have any governmental organizations that really focus on the conservation of billfish and collecting data. I mean, does I don't think NOAA does that, do they?
That's a good question. I should know. I know that they do.
Well,
Well, they do. NOAA definitely does support billfish science.
yes.
Um, and there's been a lot of financially supports also. I know that there have been a handful of billfish studies supported by NOAA. I'm not exactly sure how much, like, what the funding allocation is for
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Um, so I won't speak on that because I don't
No,
know.
you're good. All I'm trying to say is that
Yeah.
it's
Hmm.
great. Yes, back to what we were saying earlier about
Hmm.
the regulatory agency and the management of
Hmm.
fisheries and wildlife in the U.S. is so much better than so many different places.
Right.
But
Hmm.
the fact of the matter is that there is significantly more money, tell me if I'm wrong,
Hmm.
significantly more money put towards the science of
Oh,
tuna
for bluefin.
than the
Yeah,
science of
absolutely.
billfish.
Right.
And that's
Hmm.
global. That is
Yeah.
all over the place. And then there's lots of, you look at Mexico, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Panama, all those places are harvesting billfish with
Hmm.
long lines, right?
Right.
And
Yes.
in Mexico, like in Baja, I have a lot of friends that fight against the sale of striped marlin in
Hmm.
restaurants
Yeah.
because they recognize that the recreational fishing industry is so much better for the fishery than
Hmm.
the commercial. And thank goodness we have organizations. And I'm on a tangent real quick, but just bear with me. Thank goodness we have organizations like Bisbee's
Right.
that
Hmm.
bring in so much money to the community for
Hmm.
these fish. Now, Bisbee's is a kill tournament, so fish get brought back to the dock, but most of them get released,
Right.
and the recreational fishing shows that it's a good case, like a case study showing that the recreational fishery brings so much money into Mexico, much more than the
Exactly.
commercial industry. So that's my tangent.
Yes. Perfect. You
This
said that perfectly.
Bam. Oh, thanks,
Hmm.
girl. So what I So the reason, this is me paraphrasing, tell me if I'm wrong. The reason that there's not, or one of the main reasons that there's not a lot of science known on sailfish marlin, blue marlin, black marlin, can be attributed to the fact that they have currently, because we don't have enough money put towards it, they have a lower economic impact than some of the other highly migratory species that you study.
Sure. I think so. Sorry. I really don't know exactly. I'm sure that's correct. I just don't know for sure. But so there's been a lot of effort dedicated to studying billfish. I don't want to say that there hasn't been. There has been a huge amount of money and work towards billfish. Um, and
A
I
lot of
think
which is
that,
from the Guy Harvey Foundation.
yes, a lot. And a big thing also, so my advisor, Barb Block, she really started out her career tagging marlin and working with tournaments, tagging marlin. So she started out at the Hawaii International Billfish Tournament. And this is a really cool story showing how, anglers have supported this work from the beginning. So Stuart Campbell actually called my advisor when this was in the mid 90s, and telling her, like, I want to build a tag for big marlin. Like, I want to know where these fish go. I want to learn about them. Just that innate curiosity that we all have,
Yes.
especially as
Yes.
fishermen.
Mm-hmm.
And so this program, from its start, has been working alongside fishermen to build these tags and to study these fish. And so the questions that we're asking are the questions that are most important to the fishery. And it's by design like that. So she built these tags for marlin out of Hawaii.
Who funded
Got some.
those?
A lot of it was funded
Philanthropic?
philanthropically. Yes, thank you. Having a tongue
Philanthropy.
twister.
It is.
Philanthropy. Yes.
By
So that was
recreational
funded.
anglers, right?
Yes. So the Gordon Moore Foundation was a big one in the start, and Peter Fithian, who unfortunately just passed
Oh,
recently,
I did not know
they
that.
supported and worked. The anglers were supporting this work for a
Mm-hmm.
really long time and still are. So now she created what is called the Great Marlin Race, which is now put on by the IGFA, International Game Fish Association. And so through the IGFA, we have this amazing, the largest citizen science project for electronically tagging billfish, which is so cool.
It is so cool.
And yeah, so
Tell us
through
a little bit
this,
about the Great Marlin Race. If our
yes.
listeners haven't heard of it before, can you
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so the Great Marlin Race is this partnership between the IGFA and Stanford. And basically, anglers are able to sponsor a satellite tag, which are expensive. We're trying to make them cheaper, but if they're a little computer that we put in the ocean and has to stay on the back of a fish for about 8 months. So the tags are about 5,000 a piece. And so that contribution by the angler is supporting the cost of the tag and the science and our research. And then they are getting to deploy the tag themselves during tournaments. So what's great is we have everyone basically doing this work, like helping us out with this work and around the world. So, we don't have the resources necessarily to travel all over the world, but fishermen are. And
Yeah.
people are really passionate about, taking their boats to different places, catfishing tournaments all around the world. And through this partnership, we've gotten tags deployed truly all over the world.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And then so once they deploy the tag, what happens?
Mhm. So then is the horrid delay where everyone's so excited about deploying the tag, and then I have to tell them, "Hey, actually, I can't tell you what happened for like a year." Um,
Until the
so-
tag pops off.
exactly. So that tag stays on the animal until a pre-programmed amount of time. We usually program those tags for about 8 months. And so they stay on the animal for 8 months, pop off, and then they transmit all of their data up to the satellites. And that's when, then there's another lag. We download all the data from the satellite to our lab at Stanford, and we process it all and actually like turn all of those numbers into, the map that you
A
see
story.
and a story. Exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And did you say, I mean, you got into some serious detail on the tags in our last episode. So if
Yeah.
y'all are interested, check it out because it's fascinating. But didn't you say that there's a data set recorded every 10 seconds or every minute? Like how does it work in the Great Marlin race specifically?
Oh, yes. That is a good question. The tags can basically all be programmed slightly differently.
Mhm.
We're usually getting, for Marlin, we're usually getting about one position a day.
Okay, cool.
And yeah, so we're getting to really piece together. And sometimes, you know, sometimes the satellite coverage isn't as great, so we won't get as much, or sometimes the tags pop off early. But what's great about this is that, people are deploying tags all around the world and we're getting information in regions that are also data deficient. So there's, always a bias to studies that like, oh, if we're based in the United States, we're only tagging off the United States or areas that are close. Through
Right.
this program, the anglers are able to get to these far-reaching locations. We have Bad Company out now tagging who just tagged a fish off Ascension Island for us. So,
Yes. Sick.
yeah, which is really great. So, through the anglers, we're getting all of this amazing information that we otherwise wouldn't it would take decades to do on our own.
Well, and so expensive. Like going marlin
Exactly.
fishing is not a cheap thing to do.
Right.
And it's
No.
hard. And it also requires expertise, which is why people
Exactly.
get paid to do it.
Exactly.
It is a
Mhm.
career. So, yeah, no joke. So then once y'all get the story of each individual fish, is there a
Mhm.
competition?
There is. So for each tournament, it's slightly different, but basically, yes, that's the Great Marlin Race. I forgot to mention that. The point is that the tournament part of it is that if your fish goes the furthest for that particular tournament, you win that tournament's Great Marlin Race.
Yay.
And sometimes people will, like, there'll be donations of artwork or something for, the winner. It would be great to have that. There's not that for every single one, but it's kind of, that thing.
Don't they
Oh, we
do a
won.
Calcutta? Like, I thought I heard that
Maybe.
I've never been a part of the Great Marlin Race.
Yeah.
One day I would love to be, but, I feel like I need to knock on wood, so I'm gonna do that. And then, but don't the boats sometimes, like, in a tournament, there's all sorts of Calcuttas, and they'll have their
Mhm.
own specific, like, sat tag Calcutta, like Great Marlin Race Calcutta, where,
Oh, cool.
like, brown paper bag, like, "My Marlin
Yeah.
went further than yours," kinda thing, and
Right.
then but, I mean, it's like a year later, so
It's a little bit hard to keep track. Yeah, that's great if people are doing that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
The only tournament that I've worked with specifically has been the Big Rock tournament, and they've just started basically getting satellite tags the past couple of years, past 4 years or so.
Cool.
So, I don't know if people are doing Calcuttas there yet, but it's fun, and, like, it's really great because, you know, people are so much more invested in understanding what happens to these fish, especially when you tag one yourself. It
Yeah.
becomes so much more personal and you want to know, like you want to know where your fish traveled and if we all care so much about these fish. Like obviously some tournaments are kill tournaments, but for the fish that we all release, like we want them to survive. Like we all want
Mhm.
them to go off and prosper and spawn and we want to know where they're going and I mean, the anglers are, the people that care the most about these fish.
Yes, I agree.
Mhm.
And you're really channeling into what every fisherman is, which is competitive with every other fisherman.
Yes, exactly.
From the stories of it
Mhm.
was this big to I caught
Right.
more than you.
Mhm.
It's, the recreational fishermen, we just love to compete with each other. So
Yeah.
getting being able to put that with citizen science and there's some similar things all over, like with the Billfish Foundation, their spaghetti tagging
Yeah.
program. So if y'all are listening and you want to get involved, there's something for every price range, but in a way to get involved with the science. So Chloe, let's go back to Tropic
Yes.
Star.
Yeah.
Um, you were there. We heard a little bit about Ryan's work and what he did, and really the questions that started developing. So then, how did Stanford get involved?
So basically, my advisor, Barb, has known a guy for decades, I think. I'm not exactly sure how they initially met, but he has supported our work through making logos for us over the past couple decades. So we have some of his
So
artwork
cool.
for our Tuna Research and Conservation Center logo. And, they've been friends for a long time. Guy's initially a scientist, he has his PhDs, Dr.
Mhm.
Guy Harvey. So he and my advisor have been friends for a long time. And he just reached out because you know, he wanted to find the expert in billfish science, and that's Barb.
Yeah.
And, Barb has been doing it the longest. I mean, she really started out the program in the 90s in Hawaii and built this program with IGFA. And, now maybe she's not doing as much like on the ground billfish science, but she has, more experience than just about anyone in the industry.
Honestly, Chloe, like everywhere I've been, from La Gomera to
Yeah.
Madeira to even like Gibraltar and the
Yeah.
and the
Hmm.
Central American area and all that stuff, the saltiest fishermen, like I'm talking the saltiest fishermen,
Yeah.
all know who Dr. Barb Block is. You know what I mean? Like they all
Yeah.
know who she is.
Right.
Probably because
Hmm.
she ruffled some feathers on the dock, but also because they respect her and all the work she's done
Exactly.
for the fishery. She is
Hmm.
so known. She is so known in the industry because of everything she's done and put forth. Sorry, I interrupted. Continue,
No,
please.
yeah. You didn't interrupt at all. That was adding to it. So, yeah, she has just dedicated her entire life to the conservation and study of these big fish. And I think a lot of people recognize that, and a lot of fishermen have been around long enough to actually see the effects of that work and to see how important the electronic tagging has been to the fishery. So that's great. So yeah, Guy reached out wanting someone to lead this Black Marlin project. And so I was lucky enough to get sent down there as, the in our lab, the local billfish expert, I guess, for lack of a better word. I'm really the only one in the lab that fishes, and I mean, my specialty is, marlin and tuna. So
Mhm.
it worked out great that it's like I'm at the end of my PhD.
And then you manifested
This is
it.
this is exactly what I love to do. This is truly has been a dream project for years. So I felt so, I mean, I feel so lucky to have this opportunity and to be going down there. And so Robbie and I went in January, and we basically spent an entire week on the water fishing with Guy. So, and we also had Bill Boyce on board with us, who used to be a fisheries biologist and now,
Mhm.
has made, a huge career for himself over the years. And those two have been fishing together for decades. And just hearing their stories was incredible. Like, I learned an incredible amount fishing with the two of them.
God, I
I
can't
had them,
imagine. That is
yeah. I mean,
so cool.
and they know everything. Like, they have all this information. They're truly a wealth of knowledge because they've spent decades fishing, but they've also, through their filming work and photography, spent a huge amount of time underwater. So watching these fish, watching how they're attacking lures, watching how they're naturally feeding, in an effort to learn more about these fish and to capture amazing video and photo, they've learned an incredible amount over decades. And then the science as well.
I watched a video that I'm like 95% sure was guys, um,
Yeah.
off of Isla Mujeres, that was
Oh,
looking
yeah.
at sailfish feeding. It had to be guys.
Hmm.
And it was showcasing the way they communicate to each other when feeding around a ball of bait. So
Wow.
yeah, no, girl, it's so cool. So sailfish feed in schools. So do whites and striped marlin,
Hmm.
but they feed in schools and they corral these bait balls, and they would like flash color in on their body before going in to feed to essentially
Hmm.
we guessed. Wow, words are hard. What I'm trying to say is the assumption or the hypothesis was that the sailfish were flashing color to communicate to the rest of the school that they were going in to get a bait to feed. They'd come out, and then somebody else would flash color, if
It's
something like that.
amazing.
And
Yeah,
it was absolutely amazing, and that's information we just wouldn't have known. And the way
exactly.
this concept of communicating underwater with these sailfish with
Hmm.
each other is just is too cool. So the
It's
fact that they
amazing.
get in the water has always been amazing. I have every boat
Hmm.
I've worked on, I've been like, so
Can I hop
can I
in?
get in?
Yeah.
Trying to like convince everyone on board. It
Hmm.
would be so cool if you wanted to get in. I would go with you,
Right, right.
because I'm crew, right?
Hmm.
Like I don't have the right to get in unless a guest wants to get in.
Hmm.
But in the Galapagos, I'm really excited about this. Going to the Galapagos at the end of April for my women's
Oh,
clinic,
yes.
and we take every hook out of the fish.
Mm.
and they my partner Jamie calls it the sailfish snorkel, where like people have like they'll tease up a fish. At the time it was sailfish, but this is gonna be stripies. Tease up a fish, and then everyone just like gets in with their mask and snorkel to like watch
Oh, how cool.
what the billfish is doing. I'm so excited about it. Like, I'm seriously so excited about it. And the crew's just like, keeping it active on the teaser or whatever.
Right.
And I
Mhm.
cannot wait to see that. I seriously cannot. So I've always been
Yeah.
really envious and impressed with Guy's work underwater and the videos that he's made from it, because you can find those on YouTube. Like, it's awesome.
It's it's spectacular, and you
It
really
really is.
understand, like, you see, how he's captured also in his artwork, things that you're seeing in real life, but that can't be captured in a photo even. So, it's really amazing to see all of that come together and to be able to learn from him and Bill on the water. I felt like I was just like a sponge, like trying to soak in as much as I could and like clinging on to every single word and every single tidbit of advice. And
Amazing.
so yeah,
Seriously, I'm so jealous, but like in a healthy way.
right. It was great. So the first week that we were there, we deployed 6 tags on Black Marlin. And so yes, our target was fishing for Black Marlin. So and then what was great is that we also had the cooperation of the entire fleet that was there. So you have about 30 boats or so out there fishing, and everyone knows, if they catch a Black Marlin, once they get that release, to give us a call, and we'll come over and literally pass the rod over from boat to boat and recatch their fish and then put a tag in it. And that was really special too, because then we had everyone at the lodge, everyone that was staying there, excited and on board with our tagging, and like
Yeah, it's
people were coming to
combined
me.
effort.
Yeah, and that was instrumental to getting those tags out, because that first week we caught one by ourselves. I mean, you
It
can
can
still
be
go.
it can be brutal.
Right. You can still go to the mecca of Black Marlin fishing and have a hard time catching them. Like there's still fish, there's still
Yeah.
marlin.
Yeah, same thing on the reef. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
whoo-wee. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we went, I think, like 6 days, 5 days without catching one of our own, and then finally caught one on like the second to last day. So, but it was great because, we'd come back in from fishing each day, and you have a new friend, like the new
Mhm.
person that passed us a fish. And, we're all exchanging stories and contact info. And I'm like, okay, I'll let you know where your fish went. And this one's programmed for 6 months. So, got to
Oh
give
my
you a
gosh,
call
bless your
in
heart. You must get
June.
like you must sorry, I try not to go too close to my mic, but you must get how do you manage that? Like, that's so many you must have so many people that wanna be,
Mhm.
like, getting information on the fish they caught and where they went and the sat tag info and all that stuff.
Exactly. And yeah, admittedly, like it's hard to keep up with because I'm doing a PhD and I have all this other work to do, but I always try, especially if it's a trip like this where the
Yeah.
person, has gone through all this effort to pass us this fish, and, maybe like taking a little bit of time out of their fishing trip to do that for us it's huge and it means
It's
so
huge.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for you, Chloe. That's so awesome. That's so cool. So how many fish did y'all tag that trip?
So we tagged 6, and then in March, that we went back the first week of March to tag more, and we brought also 2 extra tags for blue marlin as well because, why not? We were catching a bunch of blues the first time as well. And then that trip we put out 7. So 5 on Black Marlin and then 2 on blues.
That's some good fishing.
It was great fishing. It was
Yeah.
unbelievable. And what was so cool is like, having Guy on board as well is, he has his camera gear, he has his dive gear on. And so he's jumping in with a lot of the fish to help make sure that they swim off well.
Yeah.
So, some of these fish are really tired after the fight. And especially with marlin, they have if you've ever cut one open or seen one cut open, you'll know that they have a multi-chambered swim bladder. So they have, you know, like grouper, for example, have like one swim bladder that's like a
Yep.
balloon
Mhm.
that when they come up to the surface expands.
Mhm.
And a lot of times you have to descend them or pop the swim bladder so they can get back down. Marlin, you could never pop the whole thing. It's a huge chamber that allows them to really like fine tune their buoyancy while they're swimming and diving up and down.
Fascinating.
Amazing
I did not
physiology.
know
It's
this, so I'm excited about like feel free to
yeah.
dive into that a little bit.
So yes, they're really able to fine tune their buoyancy while they're, either bounce diving up and down to chase prey or to evade predation themselves. It's this amazing system. But then that means that sometimes when they're really tired and up on the surface after a long fight, they can't always right themselves. So they'll go belly up. And I'm sure every marlin
Oh,
fisherman has sometimes seen you release a
yeah.
fish, it's belly up. So what Guy does, if that in that scenario, is he turns it back over and swims it down so that that swim bladder can naturally recompress and the fish can
Stop.
swim off.
That is so cool.
Yeah,
So
it's
when it's
amazing.
belly up, it's because of the swim bladder.
Yes, most
And
likely.
if that fish just gets
Hmm.
a little bit of help to go down,
Hmm.
it more often than not will be able to reoxidize and right itself.
Right, exactly.
Do y'all
Yeah.
I would assume y'all swim your fish before you try and tag them?
We
If they come out
usually
tired, if they're overly tired?
Yeah, so we're also that's the other thing is we're also being very selective about which fish we're tagging. So if we see that one, you know, from another boat that's passed to us, if it's bleeding a little bit, we're not going to tag it. If it had gotten tail wrapped at any point during the fight, we're not going to tag it. Because also marlin are ram ventilators, which means that they have to be moving forward to breathe and they have to have that water pumping over their gills. So if a fish gets tail wrapped at all, sometimes the tail wrap, like sometimes it can come undone, but if they're getting dragged backwards at all, they're basically being drowned.
Right.
So try to avoid any of those instances. And what we do, so we're trying to catch them as quick as possible. So we're
Mhm.
using heavy tackle. In some cases, if it's taking too long, Guy will also dive down a second snap swivel attached to a separate rod. And so we'll actually have, two setups hooked up to the
That is so
leader,
cool. Mhm.
angling it up to try to really minimize the fight time.
Yeah.
And especially, Panama's really hot water. So we're
Apparently
trying to
low
base
oxygen.
low oxygen. Yeah, hot water, low oxygen. It's a hard place to be released as a boat, like to be exhausted from that fight and
Mhm.
released. So we try to tag the fish as soon as we get the opportunity and then maybe swimming it a tiny bit, but usually just releasing it right away just to make really minimize that handling time and get them on their
Yeah.
way as fast as possible.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, that is so interesting. Um, let's talk a little bit about the differences between black marlin and blue marlin. How they're
Oh, yeah.
Oh my god. Is
Oh,
that
what was
me? Sorry. I don't know
No
what
worries.
just fell. Excuse me. OMG. That was
Mhm.
loud.
Yeah.
Let's talk let's talk a little bit about the differences between black marlin and blue marlin. I want to preface this with a personal story.
Yeah.
When I was in Costa Rica, first starting my career on the boat, barely having seen any billfish before in my life, I was told that black marlin feed in shallower water generally, and that this is a blue marlin fisherman that told me this, right? The only way that you can tell the difference between a blue and a black is but that the black marlin, the pec fins, they don't fold in, whereas blue marlin, their pec fins will fold in all the way to their body, right?
Yeah. Yes,
And so
exactly.
they were like, if you didn't push on the pec fins, then we don't know for sure that that was a black marlin. So like
Huh.
when you're like looking at the slam and
Mhm.
stuff, like that was the mindset.
Okay.
However, I will say most of the time, the fish that we're fishing off of Costa Rica are between 150 to
Mm.
400-pound fish. Like they're not big fish, and I think that changes a little bit with size. But now I would like to hear what you have to say in reference to that.
So that's exactly right. That isn't the only way to tell them apart, but that is exactly right. And that's the main diagnostic. So the pectoral fins of black marlin are rigid. So yes, they physically cannot fold up next to the boat. What's cool
So
is
crazy to me.
you can typically see that from a distance. So what was amazing, I mean, the people on the boat there were so quick. Like they could tell immediately whether it was a black or a blue based off the first jump and seeing it. And they can just see the angle that those pec fins typically are. Another so when I was lucky enough to be the angler catching the black marlin of the one that we caught that trip in January. And
Congratulations.
thank you. And what
That's
was so
awesome.
amazing after spending all week trying to learn the diagnostics, as soon as that fish jumped, I knew. I was like, "Oh, I get it now." Like it really just clicked. So yes, you see those pec fins But the thing that stuck out the most to me was that the dorsal fin is much shorter. Blue marlin have a much bigger dorsal fin. And it can be a little bit harder to tell in a bigger fish, but the fish that I caught was small. It was like a 200-pound black marlin.
Nice.
And I could tell right away. I was like, oh, that dorsal fin is much shorter than what I'm used to seeing. What's interesting is color is not a diagnostic. I mean,
No.
typically blue marlin are more lit up, but then we've also seen black marlin that are covered in
Are
stripes.
blue. Yeah.
So color doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then another thing that Guy taught me that's very subtle is I might be able to see this sailfish behind me. Not really. So
Show and tell. Cool.
So underneath their gill plate, so they have the gill plate. It's called the operculum. Underneath that is what's called the branchiostegals, to have some very scientific terms for you, which are basically those like rays that are protruding from under their gills, and they kind of look like folds of an accordion almost.
Mm-hmm.
Those in a black marlin are much longer. They protrude much longer on a black marlin than on a blue marlin. So that's another diagnostic. If you see that they almost look puffed up. I feel like the black marlin is like this puffed up version.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I did not know that about the not Bronchiosaurus, but whatever, the word you just said.
Branchiostegals. Yeah.
I'm going to have to write that one down because I want to know that word and there's no way I can repeat it now. But thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. But then like I went onto the reef and I mean, the guys over there, they know, when that fish, they can generally tell by the way the fish eats.
Yes,
and
exactly.
the way the fish fights, which you kind of touched on, when it first jumped kind of thing. And then also the shape of the head, like when they get bigger specifically, they just have that like very specific lump on the top of their head, which I think is probably similar to what's going on down here, right?
Yeah.
Like they just have that shape to them. And the guys kept telling me like, it's this, you can just tell. And I'm like, okay, but can you tell me why? Exactly.
Yeah.
But then we caught a blue and I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, I've seen at least, I don't know. I've seen at least 900 blue marlin. I'm not going to say 1,000. I'm going to say 900. And I'm really good at second guessing myself. I'm so good at second guessing myself, especially in the fishing space. Even to the point where like I will want to rig tackle a certain way. I will have like 3 conversations with people that I respect to see what they think about my about the situation I'm in, and then make my decision. Like I talk these things through and before I like stand by my statement. And I think most people should do that more, but we'll do to each his own. But so like I just wasn't confident enough. But the one thing I noticed, and I'm curious, is it almost seemed like like a blue marlin will fight. Like it'll fight to not get caught. Whereas a black marlin, it seems like it'll fight a little bit, but then once you get it on the leader, if you drop the leader, then that's when it gets that big fight in it, that like the way a blue marlin does that. Does that speak to you? And did Guy say tell me?
Exactly.
Yes.
And that was the main way. Like they could tell before they even saw the fish what it was. And that was what was so striking to me, is this huge difference in behavior. And it's amazing. These fish look so similar. They're both marlin. They're both these huge, you would think that they would fight the same way, but they don't at all. So the black marlin really is not quite as aggressive. So we were only successful at catching them on live bait also, which was interesting. But a blue marlin, you'll see coming up on the teaser time and time again. You pull it away from it, it comes back. They're just aggressive and they're wanting to eat what
they're
you
mad
put in front
at
of them.
it. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
You miss a black, you're kind of just.
It's
bummer.
gone.
Yeah,
it's not.
It's not coming back.
It's not coming back. Exactly. And
it's
we saw
rare.
that happening.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And when they come up and grab that live bait, it's like this emergence from underneath, and they just almost like suck it in.
Yes.
Which is so cool.
Whereas a blue marlin will come in from the side most of the time
and attack it.
Exactly. Most of the time from the inside out on a spread, which is really cool. Every now and then from the outside in. But yes, the black marlin will just show up.
Right. Out of nowhere. And then what's cool is, the blue marlin are putting on this show throughout the fight. where they're greyhounding or tail walking up, sometimes
Yeah.
up all the way up next to the boat, getting in front of you. The black marlin don't do that, and they jump differently.
Yeah.
So and what is characteristic, what I've learned now is that, they jump as soon as the mate grabs the leader for the first time.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so you get your camera ready. Like when you see the leader getting close, I was always like, okay, I'm trained now. Like I grab the camera, and that's where you get those amazing shots that are, on the cover of Marlin magazine,
Yeah.
is from, the Great Barrier Reef and Panama at Tropic Star,
Yeah.
because you get these huge fish jumping right behind the boat. And
Yeah.
that
For
is
the
what,
first time. Like
right.
that's the first jump. Whereas a,
Yep.
a blue is like as soon as the hook's set.
Yeah, and so you better have your camera ready.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you have some time, but yeah, you better be ready because you
Yeah.
know that jump is coming. And yeah, then they put on a show for a little bit, and then they're pretty much done, it
They're
seems.
done.
I mean, yeah.
That's so interesting. Yeah. So on the reef, and yeah, I've got to be careful with what I can share and what I can't share. But those guys, when we would get on the wire,
Hmm.
another mate would cut the leader behind them, because if that fish gets away, if that line needs to be dumped, we
Yeah,
don't want that fish to still be on the line, because that's how that fish is going to get sharked or die or in the fight, like we're all about making sure it lives to
that's
the,
great.
to the next point, right? And
Yeah,
they'll keep wiring, we'll keep wiring and then cutting the line shorter and shorter and shorter, because obviously we don't want line trailing from behind them either. But
right.
like the worst, the lesser of the evils here, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So because
And
just
that's
like you
great.
said, yeah, like
Hmm.
it's almost like do you guys think that black marlin need more oxygen than blues?
So we don't know at all. And we think that like there really is some room to be done here for studying their physiology and figuring out how it's different. Because that is possible. It is possible that there's something in their physiology that just makes them have a harder time reviving after the fight. And yes, exactly what you're saying. That's great to like, as soon as you get that leader, to try to cut it off, because yes, that hook will shed after some time. Ideally, you're not leaving a long trailing leader, but it will shed off. And that's much better than, having to recatch that fish again and spend 30 minutes where it's just stuck and sitting at
And
a certain depth,
exhausted, yeah, like in the
can't turn its
thermocline.
like won't turn its head, won't come up. And yeah, it's great to release that fish as soon as possible.
Yeah, they're doing a good job over there. It's cool.
Great.
It's really cool. And I will say though, I did have a thought earlier when you were talking. We did have a black marlin that did some like blue marlin behavior like at the beginning
Oh,
of the
well.
fight. And I have a video. Captain Luke Fallon, he's got the GoPro going, right? He's fishing from the
Mhm.
tower. They almost all fish from the tower over there. And he's got the GoPro going on the fish, and it's just like kind of greyhounding, not
Mhm.
quite like a blue marlin, but it's like jumping away.
Wow.
And he says, "Oh no, I've seen those jumps before." And and that was the only fight we had that was over 20 minutes, and it ended up being like an hour-long fight. Like that, like a blue
Wow.
marlin fight. Like
Mhm.
a lot of blue marlin will fight, especially as they get bigger. They can be really long fights. And you touched on earlier how we try to catch quick fish quickly. There's so
Mhm.
many reasons to try to catch fish quickly, and there's lots of different ways as an angler and a captain that
Mhm.
you can catch fish quickly, and it really showcases your skill level. But that being said, there are times, like you just touched on, where they get down to a certain level, you can't get their head turned, and you're just fighting, with your reel. Like that's it. So the fact
Right.
that Guy would go down and attach another swivel is interesting and really cool. Um, but I just think it's important to touch on that. But I will say that I did see one black marlin out of, I think we caught 50. I think I saw one
Wow.
black marlin that was like, I feel like a blue today.
That's so
It's
fascinating.
so
Yeah.
crazy. It's so crazy. Now, I think a lot of people think that genetically in the
Mhm.
like genealogical branch, was that the right word? Was that a real word?
Sure. Yeah.
Sure, let's run
Mhm.
with it. That black marlin are closer relatives to blue marlin than any other billfish species. But their actual closest relative is the sailfish. Is that right?
I think that it was recently shown that it
Oh,
might be the
no.
striped marlin, but
Oh,
you're
okay, I'll
right
take
that
it.
it's not the blue marlin. Yeah. Um, it's I
Because
th yes, I would have to check up on double check that, but I'm pretty sure that, yes, what you said, they're not closest related to blue marlin, which is strange, like, that's not what I
strange
would
is
expect
not at all
either.
what you would expect because
Yeah.
I have a book here. Oh, that's what fell. It's laying down over
Oh,
there.
no.
It's called The Blue Marlin. Oh, you're good. I my mom has my cactus because I'm always gone and the poor thing started dying. I had like a cactus
Oh.
bookend over there. I
Mhm.
know. I just wanted plants, Chloe. That's the whole reason why I got a house. Anyway, so I have this book over here. It's the Blue
Mhm.
Marlin book. It's really cool.
Yeah.
It's a great book. I can't think of who the author is, which is bad. I should be able to tell you, but there's like the evolutionary branch, right, of the
Oh,
Istiophoridae
sweet.
family, and it's
Yeah.
got sailfish and black marlin in the same bracket, and then
Mhm.
the other marlin, which is crazy. So if there's new science, I want to know it. So
That is the thing, it's
follow up with
always
me. It's always changing.
those phylogenies change because as we get more information, and they're also that's the sort of thing that people like scientists, groups of scientists can disagree on those things as well. So phylogenies, that's what that's called, like the family
Phy
tree.
phylog phy
Phylogeny. F
phylogeny.
yeah, P sorry,
Is it
PHY.
pH? Yeah,
PHY.
phylogeny. Cool.
So that changes, and it changes when we get sometimes more genetic data and that becomes reshuffled. Yeah, it's very complex.
That's so
Not
cool.
yeah.
It's so cool.
Mhm.
And then so I think it's interesting too that you said it might be striped marlin because striped marlin and black marlin are the two billfish species that are like specific to a body of water,
The
whereas
Indo-Pacific.
it's
Yeah.
Indo-Pacific. So then the sailfish and the blue marlin are all over the
Right.
tropics.
Yeah.
Um, Now, I did see at some point in time, I saw that a lot of people believe, and I think it might be from the same book. I love this book. It's so cool. I'm going to grab it here in a minute, but to show you guys. But I saw that a lot of people believe that the species of blue marlin
Mm.
vary, like they're two different species from the Indo-Pacific to the Atlantic. Do you know anything about
Yes.
that?
Yeah, so they're considered separate species. I'm not sure when exactly that was decided and, like, how different they are exactly. I should have done some more research before this podcast.
Oh, no.
Um,
Yeah, right. Okay. I'm like
but
throwing all sorts of random questions at you.
but yeah, they're considered separate species, and I guess sometimes. Well, I learned this also with black marlin. I learned this from Guy. Apparently, also sometimes you'll see a black marlin sneak its way around the Cape of Africa and get into the Atlantic.
I mean, there was a black marlin caught in Lebanon
Mm.
in the
Really?
Med. Yeah, like I don't kn I
That's
wanna
weird.
say, like, in the last 10 years.
That's super weird. I
Yeah,
have
so
had no
weird, right?
idea.
Like, it went through the
Cool.
Suez.
Wow.
Yes. Okay, I swear. Like, I'm gonna look this up after our chat because I'm,
Okay.
like, fairly certain that there was a black marlin caught in the Med, which is just the craziest thing to me. But are they
Wow.
in
I
the
haven't heard that. That is so cool.
maybe it
These
was an
fish are insane.
April 1st article, like, one of those, like, my
Oh, we have one more day until that. Yeah. um, yeah, but that's cool. Like, what's so cool about the black marlin is that, really the only spawning locations that we know for these fish are around the Great Barrier Reef in Australia and then the South China Sea off of Taiwan. So we
wow.
have no idea, and that's based off of finding females that have eggs in them there.
Yeah.
So what's crazy is that we don't know, black marlin are only, for the most part, with some exceptions, only in the Indo-Pacific. But then we don't know these fish that are in the Eastern Tropical Pacific off of Panama, where they go to spawn and breed. And what's also cool is that there really are only two places in the world where you can actually go and target black marlin. And that's the reef, the Great Barrier Reef, and then at Tropic Star in Panama. And like you were saying earlier about how they like to be shallower, it seems like black marlin are really like this reef associated species. But if they're not spawning in the Eastern Tropical Pacific, they must be going somewhere into the Western Pacific, but we have no idea. We really have no clue where these fish are spawning.
And why are they there in Panama?
Exactly. So that's that really productive waters. We have this
Especially when it's
upwelling
hard to
zone.
breathe.
Yeah. But there's a huge aggregation of prey. It's this foraging ground hotspot.
Yeah.
So that's why they're there. They might also be there for other reasons, but we don't know yet. So that's the big unknown and the big question mark here. And what we've learned from tagging, there have been a lot of fish tagged there. There have been a lot of fish tagged off the Great Barrier Reef, more tagged off the reef in Australia. And so in our lab and through the Great Marlin Race, we've tagged about 80 there. And
Amazing.
what's cool is that, from that data set, we have the longest track in our entire data set for any billfish species in the world. And that's a black marlin that was tagged there. I can't remember the year exactly, but it traveled a cumulative like 8,000 nautical miles from point A to point B. It was about 4,400 nautical miles. So an extraordinary distance.
And where
But
was
that
point B?
point B was in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It still didn't make it into the Eastern Pacific. Yeah, I can show you the map. Like, it
Was
looks like
it
it's
over the
just
course of a year?
that one was 8 months.
8 months? Ah.
I know. So yeah, if we had those second 2 months, so that's a big part of our project is to try to get these tags on longer.
Yeah.
And it's hard because, marlin are jumping, they're swimming fast, they're chasing prey very aggressively. So to get a tag to stay on for a year is really, really difficult.
That's a challenge,
So
huh?
yeah, so we're trying to program them for longer, trying out, different attachment techniques, trying to make these tags stay on the longest. And hopefully through this new project, we can find out, what an annual life cycle is of a black marlin. And then we also have an amazing scientist in our lab whose focus is also genetics and, everything related to tuna and billfish species. And she's working on developing a genetic sex marker so we can tell what males are doing, what females are doing.
So
You
cool.
generally know if you're catching a 400-pound fish, it's a female.
Yeah.
With marlin, the blacks and blues, the females are the bigger than the males. But we don't know if we're catching a 200-pound fish. It could be either.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
maybe this site is an aggregation for one sex or another. Maybe it's a mixing of the two. Maybe it's predominantly juveniles right now. But I have Guy's version, his book Panama Paradise, sitting below me to prop my computer up, and on that is this 1,300-pound black marlin that they tagged and released. I mean, and that was considered possibly an underestimate of weight. But
That's
so there
big.
used to be these
Oh my
huge fish
goodness.
there, but we're not really seeing those big ones right now. And the world record black marlin were both caught. The all tackle world record and then the women's record were both caught off of Peru. And but though that fisheries has
Those were
seemingly
a long time ago.
disappeared.
That was a
Yeah,
long time ago, both of those.
right.
Like in the
70s,
I was going to
80s,
say 80s. Yeah. So,
maybe
yeah.
80s. I had it written down somewhere,
No,
but
you're good. You're probably
yeah,
right, 70s, but it was definitely like
a long
not
time
later
ago.
than the mid 80s for sure.
And that fishery, those giant fish have disappeared. So, these fish, they're somewhat like when they're in the exclusive economic zone of a country, which is 200 miles offshore, they are somewhat more protected by whatever regulations that country has,
Depending on the country.
depending on the country.
Hmm.
But then once they're in the high seas, there's no enforcement. There could be illegal fishing, there could be illegal take, there could be incidental bycatch or targeted catch. And the regulations there just they're not in place. So billfish in their migrations, we have this map showing like, where marine protected areas are and where the billfish are, and they're not in there at all. They're migrating through them.
Yeah.
So it's a tough place to be a billfish where, you have fishing boats scattering across the entire Pacific. And
Helter skelter. Like
yeah,
really helter skelter. Like even
right.
moving
Mhm.
along the coastline, like the stuff, goodness, like transiting a vessel
Mhm.
along Central America is there's so many boats, there's so many unidentified
Mhm.
vessels, there's so many
Right.
unlit vessels, there's so many long lines,
Mhm.
so many long lines. And you just don't know. And if these fish are passing through, it's
Right.
interesting because I mean, the general consensus on the reef was the same as what you
Yeah.
said for Panama and Peru. We see big fish there. Like,
Mhm.
there were some big girls behind the boat a couple times this year, and that was
Wow.
seriously so cool. I mean, my goodness, that was seriously so cool. 1,300 pounds? No, I did not see that. That is
Wow.
like that's crazy. Like, oh
I
my
know.
gosh, I hope to one day be able to see something like that. But there's still some very big fish there, but it's just not what it used to be. And
Okay.
it's, at what point, like, where is that involvement? Like, what is causing that? So no one knows. I mean, the fact that we don't even have, like, what did you say? A sexual identifying marker? Is that what it
Right.
was? The
Yeah,
fact
we
that we don't
don't
even have
know.
that. Like, tell us what that
Mhm.
means.
So that means, in humans we have an X and Y chromosome. It's very clear cut. Fish don't have that. So basically, we are looking through the genome to try to figure out which genes are expressing, like, basically like egg development. So that would be a female if you see a gene that is promoting egg development, or for the same for sperm. So that's something that we're trying to figure out. And that'll really help out our tagging data set if we can match up these tracks to say, okay, the males maybe do something different than the females. The females seem to be going to this one place to, well, they have to be together to spawn. So,
Yeah.
but they might have totally different behavior, or maybe if there's a site that is specifically male or female oriented, and that's a heavily fished area, you could be skewing the population that way.
Mhm.
There's a lot to be learned with these
Or maybe
fish.
things change after a certain,
Hmm.
like, age, you
Right.
know?
Yeah, we don't
Um,
know.
and then, okay, just for comparable perspective, how long have we had sexual identifying markers for bluefin?
Oh, within like the past year, maybe? It's new.
Really? It's new.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
new.
cool. Wow, that surprises me.
Right. It's really hard in fish. And it's only been like because of technological advances in genome sequencing that's allowed us to get that. And we're still working on it. Like, it's still like
It's
that's
not foolproof.
mm-mm.
Well, congratulations, because I'm sure you were a huge part of that.
Our lab was. Me specifically, no, but our lab has been, yeah.
Well,
And
cool.
other labs. I mean, a lot of people around the world are like, we're not the only ones working on bluefin tuna.
Of
There are a
course.
lot of people
No.
doing it.
Mhm.
And it takes collaboration too. It takes, yeah, funding, but the problem is, if the different labs are competing for funding resources, then people aren't wanting to collaborate as much. It's like we need to get it a little bit sorted out so that we're all collaborating as a scientific team across
Yeah.
the world more. But
It's hard.
it's
It's
hard.
hard,
Yeah.
especially when you have
Mhm.
communities that have invested so much in their commercial fisheries and,
Right. Mhm.
like, there's so many different stakeholders
Yeah.
in these decision-making processes. So, we have the Black Marlin project that you just
Yes.
started on
Yeah.
behalf of Stanford. What's the like, do y'all have a project goal? What's the long-term vision? Where are we at here? Like, what are we hoping to see in the future?
So a short-term goal is to get as many tags deployed out on Black Marlin as we can, so we can better understand their long-term migration patterns, their seasonal migration patterns, their use of the habitat throughout different seasons. In the Pacific, we also have, different climate changes. We have El Nino and La Nina that's changing every couple of years.
Oh my
So
gosh.
understanding how that affects the populations, because,
It's huge.
if it's
It's
huge,
huge. We
yeah.
just had a big El Nino like 2 years
Last
ago?
year,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh. Oh, the mahi.
If
It
you
was
fished in the eastern tropical Pacific last year, it was probably not great.
Man, see, here's
Yeah.
here's and I totally interrupt you, but I'm going on this
No, you're good.
tangent.
Mhm.
So, 2025, 2024. 2024 Mag Bay season, Stripe Marlin season.
Yep.
There were so many mahi in the water that we, like, couldn't troll baits. We were just
Really?
pulling yeah, no, Chloe, it was
Oh, man.
insane. It was like I've
Wow.
always, like, mahi are
Mhm.
cool. I don't really enjoy
They're
eating them that
pretty.
much, but they're
Good for
pretty
tacos.
fascinating. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
good for tacos, fried. They're,
Yep.
like, very, very cool looking, and
Yeah.
they're interesting because they're, like, one of the fastest growing fish, and
Right.
they're super fast, and it's cool and whatever. But I really did develop a specific type of disdain for mahi because I saw so many striped
Mhm.
marlin eat my bait and a mahi would come up jumping. And I'm like, no, how did you Houdini me once again? So
Oh my
we had to
gosh.
pull teasers, and like we weren't even like pitching the bait further than like the first wake of the boat, right? Like it
Wow.
was bad. And we started
Ah,
off the season, they were small and you could just like, horse them in. But then by the end of the season, because they grow so quickly, they were massive. And
that's
it
hilarious.
was
Oh
it
my
is funny.
gosh.
It is funny now. It
Yeah.
wasn't funny at the time. But then
Mhm.
Cabo had, like, in the summertime, had an insane marlin season, like an insane blue
Wow.
marlin season.
Cool.
And I think that I'm curious to see if there's actually like a good blue marlin season for the next couple of years as a response to
The
so
switch.
many
Mhm.
fish being like born in the El Nino year. You
Oh.
know what I mean?
Oh,
Like bait fish.
interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. That's
Yeah,
just like my hypothesis
possibly.
that Drake and I talk about sometimes when
I like
we're
that.
having coffee or whatever.
I
you know?
mean, they need a productive prey species. Absolutely. That's huge. But yeah, I think what a lot of people were seeing in the wintertime in the tropics last year was because of that El Nino, it was just so hot
Hot.
and the fish weren't there. It was too hot.
Yeah.
So we're now, I think, like in a transition period between El Nino and La Nina. So hopefully with some cooler waters, it's still pretty productive. The whole area is pretty productive. Um, I mean, this season at Tropic Star was record breaking. Like every single week was record breaking.
That's so cool.
The second week of January it was 174, I think,
Oh, I'm
billfish
sorry.
released.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
Amazing.
insane.
And then the week we were there would have broken that record had it not just been broken the year before. It was like se- maybe I'm going to get this wrong, like maybe 17 years of a record having been broke. It was cool.
That is so
So
cool. Seriously, so
great to
cool.
be a part of like this record breaking season at Tropic Star, and just seeing how many fish were there. It was remarkable. It was really special. And everyone's having a great time because, like, it's a huge investment to go on this trip and then to be rewarded with such a productive fishery. So, what we needed to, our job as scientists is to understand what's causing that and how to preserve it so that we can continue to have amazing fishing for years to come.
That's so cool. So, short-term goal, as many
Oh,
tags out as
yes.
possible. It's my fault. I
Yeah.
like totally
We get
I
off
took
the
off
top.
on the
It's okay.
mahi. And then also the fact that the water was so warm might be why there were so many marlin up
Mhm.
north, where it was a little
Yeah.
cooler. That's probably more
Right.
likely.
That
But
sounds
or a
right. Yeah.
combination of it, right? So that was me that I definitely took that segue. But what are the like where are we at with the long-term
Mhm.
goals? Like what are you personally
Mhm.
hoping to see as well as the project itself?
Yeah, so we're really hoping also to learn where these fish are spawning. That's huge. We don't know. It's crazy to have this fish that's so important and we have no idea where they're spawning. So, what's exciting for me is like it's really this kind of exploration phase and it's rare to be able to do that anymore. Usually we know so much about everything that you're not like the pioneers or the explorers going out to learn. So, for me that's super special to be a part of and to be working with Guy Harvey who has such a huge reach and such a great skill at communicating the science to everyone as well through artwork, through speaking, through photography. Um, that is really special to be a part of because I feel like not only can we do really good work and really good science, but also, share our results with everyone broadly and get everyone excited about it and, have everyone learning alongside us what these fish are
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah, there's a power in outreach for sure.
Exactly.
It's not just the
Mhm.
lab, it's so much more. It's the
Right.
involvement of the recreational fishery as a whole.
Right. And we're doing this that's why I'm doing it. Like I started the PhD in fisheries biology because I love to fish, because absolutely became addicted to going offshore and fishing. My first ever research project was on mahi, which is funny. I was chuckling while
I
while you were
know,
telling
right?
that story because
I
like, oh,
remember
I love
that.
them. They're so
I know.
cute.
I I
Um,
I was really PG with you because I remembered that. I remember that.
so it's great to like take this next step up to billfish because these species are so important and people care a lot about them, so it's really special to be able to you know work on something and actually make a difference.
I think that's so cool. I'm seriously so excited for you. Like,
Thank you.
what a fun there's so many fun, amazing things happening in your
Mhm.
life right now. And
Yeah.
just am so enamored with hearing your stories and seeing your progress and all you do for us. Like, I just love it. I love it so much. Like, you just keep
Thank
getting
you.
cooler and cooler when I think you can't get cooler
Oh,
than you
stop.
are. No, I mean it. I mean
Yeah.
it. Awesome. Okay. Do you have any plans to go back to Tropic Star anytime soon? What's the season like? Give us a little bit about like the fishing seasons in Tropic Star and what might happen.
Yeah, so what's cool and new about this project is that so the peak season for Black Marlin is basically December to February, with like January being that really hot month typically. However, Black Marlin are there throughout the year. It's just not necessarily the peak season. So we are trying to go throughout the entire year and put tags out, even though it might not be as successful during the slower season in April and June. But we're trying to really understand these fish more. So going more consistently, putting out as many tags as we can during the peak season, but also targeting them in this off peak to try to learn what's going on because we really have no idea. So that's basically step one. It's probably a couple of years of tagging. That requires a lot of support funding for all of these tags. So yeah, if you want to support some tags, give me a call. We could always use some help. But genuinely, like this whole process is supported by you know by donors, and
Yeah.
it's huge. It's a great thing to be a part of, I think, and especially great, to see where your fish went after sponsoring a tag. So that's huge. We couldn't do it without that support. What was your next question? So that was the project. What we're trying to learn. Um, you'd ask something
Yeah.
else. I
No,
can't
yeah. I
remember.
was just wondering, like, for you personally,
Oh,
where it sounds like you might have to go fishing all year long.
I know.
That's
It's
such a bummer.
so yeah. For me personally, I'm super excited to be involved with this project because I just get this extra time on the water that is really so amazing, and learning so much more and getting plugged in with the fishery. And my goal, like personally as a career, is to be doing really great science, but also communicating that to everyone and working alongside fishermen and like being that person that can speak both languages,
Yes.
be able to talk the science, but then be able to talk fishing and make sure that, the messages are getting heard across both of that because, you know, it's super important for us all to be on the same page.
Yeah. There's a big gap there, and you're doing an
Right.
amazing job. Like,
Well,
truly
thank
an
you.
amazing job. I'm very
Well,
appreciative of
thanks
you.
for yeah. I mean, it's so great to be on this podcast and being able to share this. Oh, that's what I was going to tell you. Okay, so the new thing that's exciting is that we have tested out, and we're continuing to test a brand new type of tag. And so I'll preface this by saying that tag technology is expensive to develop. It's expensive to put out, and it's hard to make advances because like we're not the military, like we're not the most important thing to put funding towards. So um tagging, like the sometimes the tag technology lags behind what people would expect it to be. So what's great is we do have this brand new type of tag that is, so it's abbreviated a spot tag, and those are those tags that are put on sharks that like you'll see, the O search tags where you can kind of follow the shark and see where it is in real time.
Cool.
That works, yes. That works by communicating live to satellites, but it only works, radio waves can only go through air, not water.
Right. So it
So the
has to
fish
breach.
has, yes. And sharks are great because they have this huge fin, they come up on the surface, they can communicate. Sharks are so much easier. They communicate more often.
Checking in with
Marlin,
satellite.
exactly, yeah. Marlin we know that marlin do come up on the surface and kind of sun themselves, hang out. They are much more surface oriented fish, which is great. But we've found that it's hard to attach the tags to the dorsal fin
Too
because it's not
fragile.
exactly.
Hmm.
And yeah, exactly. So that doesn't work. And if you put it on their back isn't quite up on the surface for long enough to actually transmit data. So
What about their
we've
tail?
that is something that I think we are possibly going to try. But what we're testing out now is we're trying to figure out a name, exactly a good name for it is a tether or a toe tag. And I realized when I said toe tag, people thought I was saying toad tag, like the frog. It's
Oh.
like, no, not a toad, but toad behind the fish, like you're towing a boat. So
Oh, I heard toe like on your
like on your
feet.
foot. Yeah. So tow is not the right word. Tether, we found is maybe the better word. So we're calling it a tether tag. And we are experimenting with different attachment methods, different lengths. This is a full-on like science experiment here to figure
That
out what
is
works.
interesting.
Yeah. So we have the first one. This is such a cool story on a personal level and on a science level, is that in January we deployed the first one. And so that was the fish that I caught. It was amazing because I got to catch that fish and then hop out of the chair and tag it too. And that was really special for me personally, but also great just to get more data out there. That was the first one ever deployed on a Black Marlin. So in theory, we're thinking, okay, we should hear from this fish soon. Like we know it might take about a day to recover. We didn't hear from it for like 4 or 5 days.
Oh my
I got
gosh. I
back
bet
home
you
to
were stressed.
California. I was checking the satellite every single hour. My fiance was like, "What are you doing? Like, why do you keep like every hour?" Like the first thing I did when I woke up was like checking the satellite to see if
If
it
he
pinged
showed
yet.
up, yeah.
And finally, I think it was 5 days having not heard from it that we finally heard from it and it pinged. And then we started consistently hearing from that fish just about every day. And Black Marlin spend a lot of time up on the surface at night. So we were getting these hits mostly like
I
late
didn't
at
know that.
night.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah,
dependent on moon phase?
we have a paper on moon phase that I can send you.
Cool.
Moon phase is complicated, long story short.
Yeah.
But in general, marlin are spending more time on the surface at night and then diving during the day. And that's, yes, partly because they're visual predators, they're sight oriented. And so they can see their prey when there's light time, and not necessarily at night. So they're spending that time, probably resting up on the surface at night, not moving as fast. And so that is when we get this tether tag to float up to the surface and transmit data. What's cool, so we heard that from that fish for like 45 days straight, which was so great, like having this pen pal marlin. And then March 1st hits, I get back to Panama to Tropic Star. Everyone's asking me, about what happened with our tag in January. I'm telling them it's not this great story. And then all week we stop hearing from it. It's just silent, radio silence. Like, come on, like I heard from you every single day. Now I got ghosted by this marlin and literally haven't heard from it in over like 3 weeks. And just this past week, it pinged again just north of the Galapagos.
Stop.
I know.
That is so
Crazy.
cool.
Yeah.
What?
So in its first 45 days, it traveled over 1,000 miles. And then I haven't calculated out to see how far it's gone now, but
was it traveling south or was it
Yes.
traveling? Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
it was
traveling
headed that
south.
general direction of the Galapagos.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
Super cool.
Maybe
And then
I'll see it when I go down there.
I know. I'm like, I want to go with you. I need to go find my marlin.
There you go. Have you named it yet?
I haven't named it yet. I
Oh
need to
my
think about a
gosh.
name. I was scared to name it because I wanted to make sure it
Yeah.
didn't die.
Yeah, I get that. I get that for sure. For sure.
So then we put out, because that first one was working so well, this is what's so funny. We put out 2 more in March
On your second trip, yeah.
on our second trip. And then of course it's like radio silence. We're not hearing from anything for weeks. And then just this past week, we heard from all 3 of the tags again at once, which is crazy.
Ooh,
Yeah.
interesting. And where are the other 2?
The other 2 are still pretty close to Panama.
That's so cool.
Yeah, not too far yet. So ideally, these tags will possibly we truly have no idea how long they're going to last.
Yeah.
When they'll pull out of the fish, how long the battery is going to last. There are so many unknowns with this experiment. Like, we don't know what the best attachment method is. We're testing out new things, but then like the fish will do something different and it's impossible to know. So there are a lot of different variables.
They are wild animals that live in the ocean.
Yes, exactly. So we're learning a lot, and these tags are great because, ideally, I think our dream with this project is to have, a web page that you can go to or an app where it's like you can track the marlin, and especially if you're a part of tagging it, it's like maybe people are being sponsoring their fish and being able to track where they go and
VIP account.
Exactly. Yeah.
I
So
love that.
this is hopefully going to bring us into a new era of tracking data where we can get more information, hopefully for longer, and then also more quickly. Because it is hard to tag a fish and then not hear from it for 8 months or a year and not know what happened or, forget, you know. So
Forget
this
it
is great.
existed.
Yeah.
I
I want to
still
say
think
that as
about
well.
I still think about the fish that we tagged in Gomera.
Hmm. Yeah.
That was just too cool. It was just
Hmm.
such an incredible experience to get to be a part of that. That's
Right.
awesome. All right, Chloe. Well, if somebody wants to donate to the
Mhm.
project or sponsor a tag, what's the best way to do that?
Mhm. Yeah, so through us, easiest way is Tag Giant Foundation. We are, let me see, I think it is taggiant.org. Yes, taggiant.org. And then now, obviously, we're partnering with the Guy Harvey Foundation. So that is another option as well. So, but yeah, for the Black Marlin project specifically, yeah, get in touch with me or, get in touch with Guy Harvey Foundation, Tag a Giant. Either way, that will be put to good use and hopefully we can get some more tags out.
Awesome. And how would they get in touch with you?
Well, I can leave my email with you if that works. That's
Yep.
probably the best way.
I'll put it
And
in
then
the
on
description below.
great, yeah. Or on social media, like I'm pretty good about checking Instagram and I always like keeping up where everyone else in the world is fishing and what everyone's doing. So
Yeah.
that's an easy way too.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys, I will tag Chloe's information below,
Mhm.
her email, her Instagram account, as well as the Tag a Giant Foundation website. So if you're interested, check that in your description, whatever platform you're listening on, whether it's Spotify, Apple, or YouTube, all of them work. So yeah, y'all reach out to Chloe. If you liked this episode, share it, like it, comment. We love the attention, Chloe, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to join us today.
Of course. It's such a pleasure to talk to you. Like I always have so much fun every time we talk and yeah, this thank you so much for having me. It's great to be able to share some of the science with your listeners and with the sport fishing community.
Yay. We're so lucky to have you. I know I keep saying it, but I,
Yes.
I truly, truly mean it. I can't wait to see what happens from this Black Marlin project, and definitely don't be a stranger. We'll be in touch soon, yeah?
Yeah, thanks. And hopefully I'll have an update for you for season 3.
Yeah, let's go. Have a great day, Chloe.
You too.